if you have a business that's based on digital products, selling low-ticket things online, then it's quite easy to get into a rather myopic state of mind where you're focusing so much on the individual products and the sales pages and the emails and the pricing and the sequencing and all of that, that you can completely miss huge opportunities elsewhere in the business model that can have a dramatic impact, particularly on profit within the business. So in this video, I want to walk you through an example of exactly what that can look like in practice, so that I can maybe try and open your eyes a little bit to options that are available to you within your business model. In case you don't know me, my name is Olly Richards. I'm the founder of storylearning.com. It's $1 million online education business. I'm also a mentor and advisor to other online education entrepreneurs. And one person in particular recently that I was talking to, we were looking at his business model, and it looked a little bit like this. Okay, so what he did is he was running ads and he had the emails coming in, and he's big on emails, so he would send a lot of emails, and then from his email list he would then send people off to various different places. So he would have products like standalone products over here, MRR membership type thing, a print newsletter, also some workshops and things, a lot of different kind of low ticket things they would sell people into. And prices here would range anything from like 100 to 5K, different products, $30 a month recurring thing here, a $100 a month thing here, maybe like a $100 workshop, that kind of thing. So this is the sort of range that we're talking about. And his business broke down mostly like this, right? So it was about $1 million in revenue and about 300K in profits, about a 30% margin on all of this. Paid ad costs with some team to deliver on these things, hard costs with the newsletter, and just the typical kind of things that eat into the margins of a business at this kind of size. So we were talking a lot about different funnels and different ways to bring in ads, different ways to monetize. And it became apparent to me after a while that a lot of his attention, a lot of his focus was all on this machine. The idea was like, well, how do we tweak things, change things to kind of create this passive automated machine? And this is something that's good to think about, and it's good to have systems that drive revenue. But we always reach a point where the thing that we have is more or less optimized, at least to sort of 80%. If you've got a decent product ecosystem, like I talk about in my case study, link below, by the way, if you don't have that, it's completely free. It's a 118-page guide or breakdown of exactly how my business story earning works. Check it out, link in the description. Inside that doc, one of the things I do is talk about a product ecosystem. And it can look a lot like this, where you've got lots of different products and you've got recurring revenue. But if you know what you're doing and you've been in business for a while, the chances are that the stuff that you've got here is probably at least 80% optimized, which means that you could spend a long time trying to tweak these things, trying to get your ad costs down, trying to, move around your front end offers. But, even if you get a 10% gain, like a 10% gain on like something that's already at 80%, it's not really going to change your business. And so one of the things we always have to be aware of when we're building businesses is understanding where or how much impact it's actually possible for our actions to have. And this is one of those times where, we can continue to tweak things and change things here, but that's not really the big opportunity. Because every time that we were speaking, I was like, okay, man, that's cool. This is all great. But there's one big thing missing, which is the back end. Where is the back end? Now, in any business, you've got this breakdown between the front end of the business and the back end. And most of us tend to focus on the front end because, especially if we are educators, we've got products we want to make, books we want to write, content we want to create. Our focus is very, very much on the front end. And the front end makes money, right? You can easily build a 7-figure business just with front end style offers. But whatever it is that you're making on the front end, you always have the opportunity to make far more on the back end. And it's a lot more money. It's a lot easier to make. The customers tend to be a lot higher quality. You get better results for people. So front end versus back end. Now, what are we talking about here? What does that mean? Front end, back end can mean lots of different things. But the way that I think about it is like this. So you've got an ecosystem here where, in this case, he's selling to a businessy type audience. And so you've got an ecosystem here where people are signing up for things like, newsletters and workshops and digital products and, memberships. These are all kind of low ticket things where people will pay to learn a certain thing, right? But with any kind of audience, there's always going to be a willingness to pay for something that's going to live right here on the back end, which is more expensive, higher touch, more direct help from you or team members, coaches, whatever, software, a way for people to work more high touch with you to get a result more easily and and faster. Now, that doesn't have to, this particular example is in business, but it doesn't have to be business. You can do this in language learning, in knitting, in dentistry, whatever. There is always the opportunity for front end and back end. One of the easiest ways to think about this in education terms is that here you've got the information, but then what you can sell for higher ticket on the back end is the implementation of that information. So, hey, here's the information, here's the stuff. And if you'd like my help to actually implement it to actually get results in whatever it is that you're doing, well, we can do that over here in the back end. And obviously it's a lot more expensive. And so I sat down and wanted to talk to him about this in business model terms, right? Just forget the details because we can get lost and swamped in detail sometimes, but let's just keep this really, really high level. You're doing $1 million in revenue and you're keeping $300K in actual profit. Our baseline here is $300,000 in annual profit. That's everything that you're left over with at the end of a year of work. So now let's imagine we wanted to do something on the back end. What would need to be true in order for it to make a meaningful difference to your business? Now, when we're talking about back end, let's assume we're talking about high ticket here. So something that your audience will be willing to pay a lot more money in order to get help with whatever their problem is, right? I know that it's very common that people, when they hear high ticket, they'll start to think, oh, my business doesn't work with high ticket, or I'm not willing to do high ticket because I'm going to be on Zoom calls 24 hours a day and I don't want this kind of high touch thing with in my business. But what I'd like you to do is just park that fear for a moment and trust me that there are ways of doing high ticket backends that do not involve your life turning into something that you hate. The many different models for high ticket doesn't have to involve you necessarily. It can involve other people. And even if it does involve you, there are ways to leverage your time in different ways that can be really fun and really enjoyable and don't have to, suck all of the freedom out of your life. I say this because it's a very, very common objection to this kind of stuff that I actually had myself for many, many years until I learned to think outside the box and realized that there are very cool, creative ways of doing things. So park that objection for the moment and let's just think purely in business model terms. What would a high ticket backend need to do? What would need to be true about that in order to make a significant contribution to the business? So we know that this particular person is doing 300K in annual profit, right? So this after you work on your business for a whole year, net, what you're left over with is 300K. So let's say that we wanted to match that with a back end. And what that would do is actually double the business in profit terms, which is a lot more meaningful than doubling the business in revenue terms, right? Often to actually double your profit, you might need to 3x, 4x actual revenue. So let's say that the goal was to actually double our net profit. What would need to be true? Well, here are 3 different price points. And let's imagine that we wanted to offer something for 10K. Well, how many would you need to sell of these in order to make 300K? And obviously the answer is 30 people. Now, if you've been in business for a while, if you've got a decent sized audience, how difficult would it be just to create a high ticket offer and sell that to 30 people? Now, again, if you're used to running ads and high traffic and digital products, 30 is not a very high number. It probably doesn't sound that outlandish at all. But it gets better because, well, okay, let's say it wasn't 10K. Let's say it was a 15K for this particular offer, whatever it is. How many would you need to sell now? And the answer, of course, is 20. And let's say, right, now we're going to offer something for 20K. How many would we need to sell? And the answer is we would need to sell, to think a bit for a second there, we would need to sell 15. How difficult would it be to sell something to 15 or 20 people in your entire audience? And hopefully you're looking at this and thinking, actually, remember, forgetting for a moment what that thing is, actually, it's probably not that hard. Now, if you're in the business niche, it's pretty straightforward to sell something for 20K. There's lots of ways that you can add 20K worth of value to businesses. But don't think this is just for the business niche. I have a friend who teaches languages and he sells $10,000 12-month coaching packages for languages. There are people I know who are in the spirituality niche selling things for 30K or more, 40K. If we put to one side for a second the question of what it is that you actually deliver here, and I guarantee you that whatever space you're in, there are ways to do this, what you can see is to make 300K and double your entire profit from the business that you currently have without having to do any of these kind of fiddly things, all the infrastructure that's required for digital product. Actually, all that is required here is to make something that is the right thing for 15, 20, 30 people. It's a very, very small number of people. And the best thing is, look, you've already got these people in your audience, right? They are existing customers, which means you don't need to go out and run ads or do joint ventures in order to find these customers. You've already got them. If you've done the job of building a list, of building an audience, these people are already in your audience. And what that means is that it is assuming you deliver the product yourself, which you don't have to, it's 100% profit. Okay, there's no customer acquisition cost here. You will find that the people who work with you on the back end with high ticket offerings are the best people. And this is important because if you work with people selling digital products kind of at an arm's length, it's quite easy to have a rather unhealthy relationship with your list. But the thing is, as soon as you start doing more high touch things, then you will quite quickly figure out that the best people in your audience are really, really fun to work with. And they will also give you the best testimonials, which is great for your business because now you can start to get really impressive testimonials from actually having worked with people and got them results, which in turn then goes back to actually to really helping this business, right? So just purely in theoretical terms, moving from thinking about this whole front end thing to the back end is a seismic sea change in how your business works. And it makes your business a lot more resilient because you now don't need hundreds of thousands of people to come in to make this machine work. You're not at the mercy of algorithms changing or email not being delivered or whatever it is. You're able to run a very, very profitable part to your business with a much smaller number of people. And if you do this successfully, then what can happen if you wanted to then scale from, say, $1 million in revenue to 2 or 3 or more, is that you can now start to think of this entire part of the business, everything that you used to rely on to make your money and your profit. This now becomes lead gen because you can just consider this part of the business as being the part that brings in the leads, right? So essentially all of the money that you make here from this machine, what that does is just pays for the ads, which means you can now spend a lot more money on ads because that 30% profit that you were making in the business before, that can just all go back into ads, which can then help you get a lot more traffic into the business, which means that everything that happens on the back end then becomes a lot more leveraged. You've got more people coming in, you are making a lot more profit from the high ticket stuff, and it can completely transform your business and turn it into something altogether. Now, this business model may or may not be something that you actually want to do, that you find appealing, but a couple of things are true here, right? So first of all, it is almost always true that if you're nervous about high ticket stuff, then there's just a world that you haven't exposed yourself to, because like I said before, firstly, that this high ticket backend is always so much easier and more doable than you think. But the second thing is that we are often so heads down, so focused on the minutiae of our business that actually developing the skill to be able to step back, zoom out and say, look, what are the big opportunities here is a skill and a discipline that is one of the most important that you can ever get. I mean, and this is what coaching and mentorship often helps with, right? Is the ability to step back and see the bigger picture. And that is how you can make such big, colossal changes to your business, to your revenue, to your profit, pretty much overnight. Often all that's required is to just take the blinkers off and look at the world in a slightly different way. And within all of this, it's this ruthless discipline and focus on margins that is really important to make sure that all of the work that you do actually results in something at the end. And in this video over here, I walk you through how I recently built a $1.3 million business at a 90% profit margin. And so it's a kind of useful case study of exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. Go and check that out.